In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to export photos from Lightroom for entry into photo competitions, but in particular in relation to the size of the image and any other characteristics. Because most photo competitions will have some rules about what the maximum size of a photo is. This is partly to stop the people hosting the competition suffering massive storage problems from people uploading ridiculously large images, and also I guess to set a bit of a level playing field so that some people don't enter really low resolution photos, others enter really high resolution photos, which in theory means that the latter has a better image quality. So what I'm going to focus on is the specifics for Prism competitions for fairly obvious reasons, and I'll also be covering how to upload photos into photo entry from that perspective. But the principles that I'm explaining here will cover exporting for any photo competition, because they'll all typically have some kind of restriction in there and they don't all necessarily follow the same rules as Prism. So if you have a look at the Prism rules for league entries and most competition entries, first of all, these are actually set in the product that we use for uploading photos, which is called Photo Entry. And what I'm going to do first is open up Photo Entry and show you what the rules are. So, if I go here to Photo Entry, and log in. And if I go to the main menu, click, thank you, and choose a recent league competition, current one being broken as I'm writing this. So these are the rules. Target dimensions, this is basically the maximum size of the photos that you can enter, and they're always expressed in these values here, which of course are pixels. So pixel is like an individual component of a photo. The dots, if you like, on the old TV screen, effectively dots on a computer monitor. And the maximum size is 3,840 wide and 2,160 high. This is the primary characteristic that everyone tends to focus on when they talk about, what the limits are on photo entries. However, there are others. There is a minimum size, which is defined here. There's a maximum overall image size, which is 10 megabytes. And there's also a color profile. What I'm going to do, because this is fairly complicated, I think I shall copy this so I can paste it in later on. I don't know whether I can right mouse click and copy. Yes, I can. Fine, good. So I've got that on my clipboard now. So those are the rules that I'm having to comply with. So I'll leave that open actually for fun. And what we'll do now is go into a Lightroom and export a photo in the right dimensions and upload it. So this is a photo that I've used before in this training, so why don't we use this one as the basis for the export. It irritates me that this could still be improved. I'm just going to do a little more lightning on that. Right, okay. Right, okay, so in order to, you can actually, if I go into grid view, as you recollect if you watch my earlier videos, when you open Lightroom, it goes into the library mode, which allows you to view all of your photos. And in library mode, you've got two primary views, and you can switch. But the grid is when you display all of the photos in smaller images in a list, and the single photo view, which is what we're in right now. So to switch to grid, I actually just click once on this, so you can see all the photos in there. select a particular photo just by double clicking on it like that. Easy to move backwards and forwards. Now you can, if you want, export a whole load of photos at once, but for photo competitions you typically wouldn't be doing that. The principles are the same, so if you learn how to export one, that should give you enough info to be able to export masses if you need to. So in order to choose the photo to export, you simply click on it, and then you can right mouse click over it, and you get a little menu pop up, and the one that we're looking for is export, not surprisingly. So if you click on export, right, so basically this export dialog allows you to set up all of the different. You've already decided which photo you want to export, but it's now asking you for the characteristics of how you want to export it and where you want to put it, put the exported image. Because exporting, when you import into Lightroom, it doesn't actually create a separate physical copy of an image, as I've explained before. What it does is it just tells Lightroom where to look for that particular photo. When you export from Lightroom, it does create a separate physical photo, and it will embed all of the changes that you've made to the photo in the exported image. So where do you want to put that image? So at the top here, you can export to a specific folder, which is the obvious one to go for. What are the alternatives, you might think? Well, actually, you can do things like forget selecting the folder that you want. Just make it the same as the original photo, which can be quite a useful one, and there are others as well. But I'm going to a specific folder, and I'll actually change the photo. At the moment that's in C Photos Exports, which seems quite a reasonable place to put it, but I'll actually just show you how, if you wanted to change that, you can change it. So in here, if I come down to Photos, and I'll create a new folder just for this particular export, and I'll call it Demo Exports. So I'm selecting that folder, and you'll see that it changes here, that it's now going to put the resulting photo in Demo Exports. Got the option of putting it in a subfolder, which we don't want, just put it in that top level one. You can, if you want, change the name of the exported photo from its original name. If you click that off, it will just give it the same name as the original photo. But I do want to add a more meaningful name, and it's actually, as you can see, I've done this before, because Man on Cliff is quite a relevant name for that. But just so you can see, I'm doing it for real. I call it Cold Man on Cliff. The video section isn't relevant to us. The file settings are relevant to us. You can choose the image format. JPEG is basically the standard that everyone uses for entering into, certainly into Prism competitions. Others are available, but I think JPEG is the default, and we'll just leave it at that. Quality, you can use this if you use this slider to reduce the quality. What that will mean is it will reduce the number of pixels in the resulting image, give you a smaller image but less quality, and I'm going to keep that at 100, i.e. top quality. The limit file size, again, potentially this could be useful if you were coming up against the limit I showed earlier of the overall file size. This is in kilobytes, so basically if you did want to restrict it, the 10 megabyte limit in photo entry would be 10,000 kilobytes. I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, someone will correct me, I'm sure, but I think that's right. But I don't want to do that. So anyway, color space. This is a kind of rather technical thing. The color space is really, as I understand it, it's in a way a configuring of how the internal description of a color is displayed externally on monitors, etc., etc. There are a number of these, and I mean, basically, I don't think it's anything you need to worry about. The difference between them is marginal in my experience. But since there is a requirement in photo entry for using a particular color space, it's as well to get it right. Now, the list down here, you can see other allows you to define anything you want, but it's got a drop down list of the most popular ones, and the one that photo entry requires is actually at the top of the list. So although at the start of the video I copied that from photo entry because I didn't want to have to type out all this crap in here, but actually it's available in the drop down anyway, so that's fine. Image sizing. Now this is a really important one here. Now, when I was sort of practicing for this video, I discovered something quite interesting, I think, which might be worth mentioning. And I think, yeah, the default might be dimensions. And I was thinking, I'd say 3840 is the maximum width, 2160 is the maximum height. And I was trying to work out, well, okay, so which is which when it's set to dimensions? And basically, it, it, it will interpret it either way. So what I'm trying to say there is that 3840, those are the maximum sizes of the image. But if you've got a portrait image, i.e. kind of vertical format, it will allow the portrait size, the height, if you like, to be up to 3840, and it will allow the width to be 2160. And what that means is that you potentially there are breaking the rules of photo entry, which is quite prescriptive. The maximum height has to be 2160, not 3840. So what you should be doing here, if it is set to dimensions, is change it to be width and height, and then you've got the actual specifics there, because that's actually what photo entry is looking for. Maximum width 3840, maximum height 2160. Quite important. Right, okay, so any others? Output sharpening, I'm not quite sure whether this has any impact, but as we normally look at things on screen, I normally click on that and say, yeah, sharpen for screen, why not? I'm not going to do anything with those, just leave that as is. And that's it, basically. Um, so, well, just one point to mention is, and again, this helps make things easier. When you've done an export once and then you go back into export, in general, all of the values in here are defaulted to what you used before, which means that once you've set this up for Prism, etc., you don't have to go through all this palaver. You just need to, reuse the existing values in there. If you don't want to restrict, if you're doing an export for a different purpose, and you don't want to restrict it to the photo entry or Prism requirements, rather than blank those out, all you do is unclick that, and then there will be no restriction on image size. But what I do is I sort of just switch this on and off. If it's a Prism competition, I switch that on. If it's not a Prism competition, I'll typically leave that off. The only other thing while we're here actually is quite a useful little point to throw out. If I'm exporting photos to email to friends or whatever, you don't necessarily want to make them too big overall, and that's where I do use this file size limit here, and I typically will say set that to 3000 if I'm emailing it, which is 3 megabytes, which is a decent sized image but not too big to be emailed. Just a little bonus tip there. Right, so we're exporting for Prism, so I'll come back and click that on, and I'll click Export. Okay, so at this point I'll just sort of minimize Lightroom, and I'll reopen File Manager, check where we are with that. C drive, Photos, Demo Exports was the one that I was looking for. So now we have Cold Man on Cliff, that's been successfully exported, and I'm reasonably confident that it will have had the right dimensions put into it. So let's now upload into photo entry. So what I'll do is I'll log out of this and come back in from scratch. So I'm doing it, as it were, for real. So as you can probably see, I'm using sort of browser folders and shortcuts here because I can't be bothered to retype everything. This is a convenient way of storing websites. It's nothing to do with Prism or photo entry. It's just more to do with browsers in general. So when I go into photo entry, it's remembering my previously used login details. But here, for instance, you put, I don't know, Jamie Mashon, password comedian, or whatever would be appropriate, whatever. And then when you log in, you get this, which is the main menu. For all standard users, I think within Prism, everybody is a standard user except potentially Justin, Mark, and I think maybe Jamie as well. And then if you're a super user, if I can use that term with all due modesty, you have access to this administrator menu, and this is where we go to set up the competitions in the first place, to get an overall view, close the competitions, and set them up for voting. But you got standard users, no offence, standard users, don't need to worry about this. You just use this bit at the top, and in fact, all you would ever really use is that one, main menu. That's just a link to the Prism website. Help, frequently asked questions. I've never really used this, to be honest, but you may find some useful bits and pieces in there. So if you click on main menu, where you want to be looking is 2024, fairly obviously, although in future years one might find 2025 and beyond there. So you click, you expand that, and there you have a list of the various competitions in 2024. If I open up here, go into League, you get a list of all of the League competitions. We try and set this up at the start of the year, so if you look in January, February, you should see the whole set of competitions for the year set up there. You've got the competition here, you've got the close date for entries to that competition here. Generally speaking, Prism meetings are on a Thursday evening, and what we do is we set up the competition entries to close the midnight on the Sunday before, which gives we people who are organising competitions a few days to get things ready for the judging on the following Thursday. If it's not a league competition, if I go back to the main menu, if you should be able to find everything in here. Founders Trophy is coming up right now for the slow shutter entry. So if I click on that, you'll see slow shutter, fast shutter, etc. Everything you need should be there. If it's not, let me, Justin, or someone like that know, and we can organise it. So anyway, this is completely inappropriate image for shadows, but I'll enter it in there, the one that I'm going to be working with. So the other thing I should mention is obviously you can see here the status closed for competitions that have been and gone. Generally speaking, all future competitions are set up to be open. So if you wanted to, at the start of the year, you could actually kind of preload all of your wonderful photos into here, or even better, you could take new photos for them. But anyway, the point is that they are generally open from the start of the year, so you can, if you want, put things in there. You don't have to leave it till the last minute like most people do. So I'm going to load. So I haven't yet selected the photo within photo entry, so I have to find it, as you'll see once I actually open the competition. So let's say I've got a photo and I know where it is. It is in the test exports folder that I just used there, and I want to enter it into the shadows competition. So what I do is I click on shadows, and at the moment it's telling me you do not have any entries in this competition. Now I'm allowed a maximum of 2. It's there, but I'm just going to set up 1 for now. So I'll add a new entry, and I'll call it I'll just call this Cliffman, just to make it different from what we've done before. It doesn't. The entry title is what will actually be visible to all Prism members during the competition when these photos are put up for display. So this is where you want to think carefully about what name you want to call it. The file name, which if you remember, I think I made I think I made Cold Man on Cliff, that the file name is not visible anywhere. It's that entry title there, which is what people will see. So if you want to think up a fancy name for your photo, this is the place to put it. No idea what entry reference means, never use it. So you put in the title and then it says add this entry. So this is where you would select the photo that you want to put in. So the thing changes now to be choose JPEG. I said before JPEG is the preferred format. Looks like it's actually the mandatory format for photo entry. So choose JPEG. And that now takes me into an Explorer type view where I can go in and select the photo that I want, which if I can remember was here, Cold Man on Cliff. So having found the photo there, I open it, and having chosen it, I now have to upload it. I don't know why that's 2 steps, but it's just the way it is. So now it's uploading the image. Now, this photo should be completely compliant with all of the rules. If that is the case, it'll say OK. So I'm good. If it's not the case, if you've broken the rules in some way, I think photo entry will generally try and help out by resizing it for you to the correct format, to an acceptable format. But in those cases, you never know what the image is going to look like, or it could be. I think typically, if you enter something that's more than the standard maximum here, a bigger size than that, I think it will actually make it quite considerably smaller, which could have an impact on the resulting image quality. So I know a number of people just say, "Oh well, I'll leave it to photo entry to decide." But actually, well, which is fair enough. Maybe the differences are not that great visually. But I think if you want to try and be as sure as you can that what people see at the end of the day is what you want them to see, it is worth making the effort that you do meet these rules, and what you end up with is a nice little OK there, rather than image resized from high resolution original or something like that, which I think you get a message something along those lines. So the information that it's giving me here is about the image dimensions and size. So this image that was generated by Lightroom, but in compliance with the rules, is 2997 pixels in width and 2160 pixels in height, which is exactly in line with the requirements. And so there you go. That's it, really. So if you want to make sure that your entries are in line with photo entry requirements, hopefully this will have been a useful guide to you. And keep in mind that if you just sort of think intelligently about the principles that I've been explaining here, it's pretty easy to adjust the exports to meet whatever requirements you want. The end.